So I just saw the movie Titanic, made in 1997 by James Cameron. It has been re-released in theaters for its 25th anniversary. Technically, it's a little over 25th anniversary, but James Cameron didn't want to compete with the opening of Avatar at the very least. So in theaters now, I watched it on Valentine's Day with my girlfriend, and it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun almost, I feel like, doesn't do it justice. This is, to me, one of those movies that is like, this is why you go to the movie theater. This is why you watch movies. I think there are some people who, listen, anytime something gets this popular, you're going to have its detractors, but I just think this is such a beautiful movie in so many different ways. There's so many memorable scenes, and the reality is, cinema is such a unique art form in the way that it's about feel. That's all it's about. It's how does it make you feel, and this movie definitely made me feel throughout this film. There's so many unique parts, so many just perfect scenes. I mean, again, romance has never really been my key thing. That's not my type of movie I tend to watch. I've as an adult started watching more of them, and I definitely can appreciate them. I didn't grow up with that kind of stuff. So I think a lot of probably, I'm assuming most of people that are watching this are men, given the fact that, my sports YouTube channel is mostly men that watch it. And, I think for most of us, we don't really grow up watching romance movies. It's something we sort of start watching as we get a little older. But in this film, I think part of why it works so well is it's, the best kind of movies aren't just about what they're about, but there's so much more going on. And it's not just about Jack and Rose, although we do genuinely like them, and as a viewer, you do definitely enjoy seeing them together. It's also, Jack is kind of the representation of what Rose wants in life. Rose doesn't want to marry this rich guy and be a trophy wife for the rest of her life, and kind of all her dreams are in Jack. That's what she sees in Jack, and that's what she's hoping to, accomplish in life, is her relationship with Jack. And that's kind of why, spoiler alert, but I think everyone knows what happens. Like the ship sinks. Yes, it does. And when that tragic scene happens in the door, what she's letting go of Jack when Jack sinks to the bottom isn't just her, her boyfriend, but also this, terrible, sort of her dream in a sense. And that's kind of what makes it, I think, so beautiful. One of the things James Cameron does so well, and a lot of lesser writers try to accomplish and fail to, I think Cameron does not get enough credit with his writing ability, and this one he does a great job of just knowing when to let a movie breathe. I mean, when we're seeing this sort of romance and sort of the fun and games section of a movie, a lot of times people will still say, gotta keep hurrying things up, gotta keep things moving, and he finds ways to still have a story and still have conflict and still have tension, but keep it light and keep you still just sort of enjoying hanging out with the characters. And the scene where they're at the party and they're tap dancing, that's sort of a weird scene that would be very boring in a lesser movie, but you find yourself enjoying your time together with Jack and Rose. You like these two people, and you really care for them and want to see them ending up together. Of course, it's one of the most beautiful looking movies of all time. I think that goes without saying, but yeah, the visuals are absolutely stunning. Kind of the scene where they kiss at the front of the bow, with the lighting, which apparently it was hell on set to try to get that lighting. Apparently there was like one day where that lighting was there, and it only worked for it was only there for a few minutes. So I really had to, James Cameron's telling of it was they took 3 shots of it. 2 were completely out of focus, and 1 was kind of out of focus. So they went with the one that was kind of out of focus, and you can see it when you watch it. If you rewatch that kissing scene, there is a shot where clearly it starts off out of focus and then gets back into focus. But again, it works so well, and especially the My Heart Will Go On, just an incredible song, one of the best songs used in a film of all time. It absolutely, again, if a job of movie is to get you to feel something, it absolutely gets you to feel something. It's used so well. The entire soundtrack, it's one of the best scores of all time, and it really is just, again, I keep saying best of all time. This is an all-time movie. It really is. And that's something I definitely felt when I was rewatching it in theaters. It's like, yeah, I am watching one of the best things ever put to film. This is a movie that won a record 11 Oscars. 11 Oscars. That's absolutely absurd. And again, you could say the Oscars don't mean anything. They kind of mean something, at least a little bit. And the fact that this movie won 11 of them, I think is very, it's telling. And I also think that, again, some of these performances I think James Cameron does such a good job of letting his actors kind of, again, they exist, and sort of like how in Avatar 2, for example, the most recent James Cameron movie I watched, you have kind of a big chunk of them just kind of hanging out with sea animals. Well, it's Jack and Rose hanging out, and for it to work, you have to like these two actors and sort of their chemistry together, and I think that they're both incredible. I mean, you really do buy Kate Winslet as kind of this rich girl who is sort of in this world and doesn't want to be and kind of wants to be free. And you buy Leo as Jack Dawson, as this character who really, is sort of this charismatic guy who figures out what he wants, flies by the seat of his pants, but also has his own issues and is just trying to get by, and they work so well together. I mean, Leo is just as charismatic as ever in this one, I think. And again, for James Cameron, this really, I would say this is his best movie. I think so. I know people might say, Terminator 2, I can see the argument behind it. To me, this is his best film. I think this is one where he lets the movie breathe when it has to. It gets so intense when you have all this great love story, which, again, is the love story the strongest part of the movie? Are there better love stories out there? Sure. But it still really works, and it's still a very good love story. And I think part of what makes it work is that typically when you have a love story like this, the final act is something goes wrong, and it's are they going to stay together or not? This time, it's not an internal conflict, but an external conflict with the couple. Because, as in not an internal conflict between the two who are the couple, but an external conflict of the ship is sinking, and will they end up together? And it's a very fascinating thing of what's going to happen, and it's so suspenseful, and the fact that James Cameron does not pull any punches once you get to that moment. Like, some of these side characters just work so well in this one and really kind of build to making this feel grander than just two characters' story. And I think the way that they really took their time at the beginning before we even meet Rose, old Rose at that point, and then even then, it's a while before we meet young Rose and kind of get transported back into what our story is, gives it this grander feel and kind of lets it feel bigger than maybe it would have had they just started traditionally. And while it's kind of it's kind of an odd choice that they made, at the same time, I can't imagine this movie if they made it any other way. I think that part was necessary. And going back to my original point about some of these side characters, like, think about the character that is, trying to make sure that the lifeboats don't get swarmed, and you're kind of rooting against him because he's working against the heroes, but at the same time, he is someone who is actively trying to maintain order and trying to save as many lives as possible. He's someone who's realized he will be dying tonight, but still wants to make sure he can help save as many lives as possible. It even goes as far as to kill someone to make sure, shooting someone to make sure that he can definitely, making sure that he can save as many people as possible. And because of that, he ends up, after shooting someone, feeling the guilt and killing himself, which is such a unique thing to put in a movie that I think a lot of people would be too afraid to put in that, have that story there. But he was willing to do it. Cameron was. Also the violin players, which is a real thing that happened on the sinking of the Titanic. But again, how many filmmakers would be willing to put that in there? And just the gentleman, it's been a pleasure playing with you. I know it's been memed to death, but it's still, when you're in the theater, it definitely hits. It hit for me, at least. Listen, I'm not saying this is a perfect movie. There are cheesy moments throughout, and if you're someone who loves to, I'm sure CinemaSins has a field day with this kind of thing. If that's what you're into, there's definitely things to criticize throughout. Like, just one small thing I noticed just watching it was we have our main bad guy here in this one. He's the one who, played by Billy Zane, who he takes a baby and he uses the baby as a way to get onto a life raft, and like that's sort of like the way that a man is able to get onto a life raft. But then it cuts to cuts to a shot where you can see the whole raft, and there's like a bunch of men on that raft too. It's like, wait a second, I thought he had to trick his way on there. But again, who cares, right? If you love to nitpick things like that, there are nitpicks you can have throughout this movie. I've never been someone who that bothers, but if you are someone who gets bothered by that stuff, I could see it. Although I would say that I think that the Billy Zane character was probably the weakest part of this film. Like the point where he takes out a gun and starts shooting at Jack and Rose did take me out of the movie. It felt cheesy. It felt like, I mean, they're on a sinking ship. You don't need to then shoot at them. It felt kind of mustache twirling, which I believe there was even some like more stuff like that got cut out of the movie, and I think good. Again, it's a bit of a there's cheesy elements throughout, right? Like Jack, who's handcuffed, saying, "I'll wait here, Rose." Like, yeah, we know where you're gonna be, Jack. You don't need to tell us. There's things like that throughout, and of course, there's the famous or infamous, depending on how you look at it, door sequence where, could he have fit on the door? Could they have both fit on the door? From what I understand, in real life, no, they couldn't have. It would have sunk enough that they both would have died if they both tried to stay on the door, or would have tipped over. I forget exactly the logic behind it, but from what I understand, it's true that they would not have both been able to fit on it. But we're watching a movie. We're not scientists in a science lab, right? And we see a giant door, and it feels like they very quickly decide, oh, only one of us is going to be able to fit on this door. It felt like, try it a couple more times, right? We've rooted for Jack and Rose for 2.5 hours now. We like these two people. Don't just take them away from us without even a fight. Give us a couple more tries. Make it clear to the audience. And that's really the thing is, Cameron in that moment did not clearly communicate to the audience that they could not both fit on the door, which is why people still to this day talk about could they have fit on the door or not, which in real life they couldn't have. But when you're watching a movie, you don't know that. Most people don't know the physics of a door and water and freezing cold temperature and how that would affect you. So, that's kind of that's the issue with that one, which again, you can't explain everything. Sometimes you explain too much, sometimes you explain too little. That's the struggle of filmmaking. But as a whole, that's my take on the door situation. If you're someone who has not seen Titanic, I really do recommend it. Even if, I said plenty of stuff about what happened in this video. Sorry for spoiling a little bit of it, although I'm sure you've heard all of that stuff already. I'm sure this isn't anything new to you, or at least most of it isn't, because again, everyone knows of the door stuff in Titanic, right? I'm assuming most of you have heard of that already, but even if you figure, I know kind of what happens, I don't need to check it out. Trust me, it works, and I actually think it works better on a second watch, once you know what happens, because part of what the movie does so well, I didn't talk about this earlier, is like the way that they explain, at the beginning, there's a sequence where they explain, here's how the Titanic sunk, and here's what happened, and that really builds the suspense, because you know that the iceberg hits, and you know that it's going to sink, and you understand why it's going to sink. You understand how the physics of it work and everything, so when you're watching it, okay, this happens, and then this happens, and even like, they tell us that the drawing of Rose was drawn the day the Titanic sinks. So once that happens, we now know, okay, well, this is the, climax, no pun intended, of Jack and Rose's story. It's now also starting to be the climax of the movie itself, and we're now shifting gears to a much more serious situation. So again, so well done. I think it's James Cameron's best movie. It's one of the best movies of all time. It really is. And it's in theaters. And if you can catch a movie like this when it's in theaters, you got to make sure that you go out and do it. It's seemingly really expensive. I don't know what happened there. I'm not sure if it was because it was a holiday, but my ticket was so I have the AMC A-list, so I just pay a set fee every month to watch basically unlimited movies, which I recommend if you're a movie fan. It's a great way to kind of get into the theater without having to feel like you're paying an arm and a leg to do it. But if you are just going to buy the ticket, mine was like $19 here in Orlando, which seems like an absurdly high price. Again, I didn't pay that. I paid just the monthly fee, but still, which is like $21. So basically, kind of crazy that worked out that way. I'm not sure if that was just a one-time thing, but that's insane. But still, it is worth watching in theaters. It's one of those movies that definitely I think is worth it. And plus, if you've already seen it before, watch it in theaters, because then, hey, if you have to go to the bathroom, no worries. You don't feel that bad about stepping out because you've seen it before. Because I had to go to the bathroom at one point, and I didn't feel bad about going. So that also helps, because you don't want to go when it's a new movie and you don't know what happens next. But yeah. As a whole, I'm not going to give a rating for this because that just feels silly. Like, oh, I give this movie a 5 out of 5. Yeah, of course you do. It's Titanic. It's fantastic. Definitely big fan of this one. But that's what I think about all of this. What do you think? Have you seen Titanic in theaters on the re-release, or have you seen it in general? I should mention the 3D aspect. We watched it in 3D. unnecessary. It's one of those where obviously it wasn't shot in 3D, so all they do is just take certain parts like the foreground and the background and kind of make them further and back. And the whole thing isn't in 3D. It's just they'll have three select parts in different distances down the I almost said down the field. Got my football brain on. Distances further away from you. So if you like that, watch it, but it is very much like the old school 3D, not like the Avatar 2 3D, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, that's what I thought of Titanic. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Always love hearing from you, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.